Okay, I will call all members in alphabetical order. Councillor Bassinger.
Yes, hello, Bernard, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Beale. No, he's not here. Councillor Bell.
Here.
Councillor Boyce.
Here.
Councillor Channer.
Hello, Chairman, and hello, Bernard. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Fluker.
Yeah, present. Bernard, the link isn't working from the Malden District Council website. If you click on it, where it says South East Planning Committee live stream, it's not working.
Just going to let Grant know that.
It says video unavailable. I think, Councillor Thompson's managed to pick it up from somewhere, but if you go onto the MDC website, go to South East Area Planning Committee, 10th of June, and click on the link, it's not working.
Okay.
And,
I'm sorry to butt in as it's not my meeting, Adrian. I got the sorry it's not available watch on YouTube, so I hit the watch on YouTube and then I get it, but I've only got the earlier part.
And Bernard, I've got a message come up on my screen saying a recording has started. This meeting is being recorded. By joining, you are giving consent for this meeting to be recorded. Privacy policy. Which recording is that? Because I haven't seen it on our other council meetings. Is that a separate recording going on elsewhere?
No, this is the same recording, the YouTube recording.
So that policy comes, that's the first time I've seen it when we've used YouTube, if that's where it's coming from.
Right.
Councillor Channer, I think that's as Councillor Thompson said, you had clicked recording. I think that thing at the top is in relation to Teams only. I don't know if anyone is still recording or not, but I think it relates to that rather than to the YouTube.
I am Chairman, because I haven't yet worked out how to turn it off, which I will if it makes everyone happy, but you have to bear in mind anyone can sit in front of their screen with a phone and record it that way.
Thank you, Maddie.
So, but if someone tells me how I'm supposed to stop the recording, it's easy enough to start it, but I don't know how you stop it. So a little bit of information and I'll do that.
I don't think
it is a public meeting and anyone can sit anywhere in any meeting and record it. That's
absolutely, yes. I don't think it makes any difference that you're recording it, says Councillor Skeens.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just stating what's come up on my screen saying that the meeting's being recorded. By joining, you are giving consent for this meeting to be recorded. That seems it has to be a holistic consent of the committee.
Bernard, where are we now, please?
We're just checking the link from the web one more time.
Okay.
Chairman, can I just say the message I've got is the link where this person's looking in from, the MDC meeting notice link like last week. So they are getting it from the MDC link.
Yes, that is correct. Okay, Chairman, we're back live. Do you want to?
You want to go back? Apologies, absence and minutes and all the rest of it again.
Oh no, we'll just start with the roll call.
Okay, can I have a roll call then, please, members? Bernard.
Okay, members, I will take you in alphabetical order. Councillor Bassinger.
Present.
Councillor Beale. No. Councillor Bell.
Still present.
Councillor Boyce. Councillor Boyce. Councillor Channer.
Hello, I'm still present. Have been waiting. Yeah, cheers.
Councillor Fluker.
Present.
Councillor Helm.
Yes, present.
Councillor Hull. Councillor Hull. Councillor Skeens.
Yes, I'm present.
Councillor Stamp.
Yes, thank you, Bernard.
Thank you.
I'm here.
Councillor Hull.
Councillor Hull.
Thank you. And Councillor Boyce.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Okay, Chairman. Thank you.
Are we ready to proceed now, are we?
Yes. Declarations of interest.
Declarations of interest, please.
Councillor Morris in attendance, by the way.
Thank you.
Chairman, I have a declaration to, well, two actually to make. Do you want me to continue, Chairman?
Carry on, Councillor Channer.
I have a non-pecuniary interest in that I'm also a member of Essex County Council, and they're consulted on applications in terms of matters of highways and anything in their remit that they should be consulted on with the application. And also I declare, and I've now we're able to see the papers on another screen, a small screen. It's agenda item number 6. It's actually the second application we're considering. I must declare non-pecuniary. I also know the applicant.
Any more?
Councillor Skeens, I believe.
Councillor Skeens.
Yeah, just that I'm a member of Burnham-On-Crouch Town Council and therefore have a non-pecuniary interest in all these matters.
Okay.
I have, Chairman, please. I know the applicant on agenda item 6 and it's Councillor Stamp.
Thank you, Councillor Stamp. Anybody else?
Chairman, I did actually put 2 comments on chat that I wanted to declare an interest because I thought that's what we were supposed to do. So, Chairman, in relation to agenda item 5, Station Road, Burnham-On-Crouch, I own the adjacent property, so I shall declare a pecuniary interest and take no part in that item and leave the meeting. Chairman, in relation to item number 6, I know the applicant, and I think, Chairman, in light of the situation between the Secretary of State, Robert Jenrick, and the DCHLG, and in particular his dealings with Richard Desmond's with the development of West Ferry Works on the Isle of Dogs, and the overall significance of that, I'm going to declare a pecuniary interest in relation with my association with the applicant. So I shall take no part in that discussion, Chairman, and I will leave the meeting now, I think, because unless there are any other items of business, Chairman, that you're going to...
No, there's no other items.
So, Chairman, I'll leave the meeting now. And I was actually going to pay tribute to everybody for this very historical moment when we managed to get the South East Area Planning Committee done virtually and completely seamlessly. But where I am today, Chairman, the incumbent, it's his birthday today, and I've been invited to the lower house to have a tea and biscuits. So good luck to you all and have a lovely afternoon. Toodaloo.
Thank you, Councillor Fluker.
Chairman, would that be minuted? Because it's hardly relevant, is it?
Well, it's not gone on the recording, so unless you want it taken off, do you want to propose to have it taken off?
Well, no, but I mean, come on, it's a planning meeting. We don't need to know somebody what they're doing after the meeting, surely.
Chairman,
now it's been recorded, we're going to move on.
Chairman, may I please just inquire something? Councillor Fluker's declaration, he's leaving the meeting because of what he's doing. It's not because of the relationship with the applicant on the second application.
Thank you, Councillor Channer.
Is that what he means?
Yeah,
well, I thought you declared a pecuniary interest in both cases.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand the pecuniary with the second application. Do I have to do the same? Because I know the applicant through a certain association that I'm a member of.
He decided to declare a pecuniary interest, and it's up to each member to declare how they feel fit at the time. Are we satisfied now?
Well, in that case, if Councillor Fluke on the second one declared pecuniary because of the relationship with that applicant, then perhaps I will. I mean, I know the lady purely through an association of which I'm a member of my party, actually. So perhaps then in that case, I'll get out application number 2.
OK, then. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Mayor.
Hang on, Councillor Cheney, that means that the majority of the Conservative Party, because I think that's what you're alluding to, will not take part in this meeting. Can we have some clarity on this?
That's why I'm seeking the clarity. Can I hear...
Can we stop having little arguments here, please, and get on with the meeting?
Chairman, it's not an argument. I'm just seeking clarification on what Councillor Fluke has said, because I read to do with the association, and therefore, if that's the case, then I will get out. I've just wanted clarity on his wording.
Can anyone assist, please, with the wording?
Really? It's down to Councillor Fluke, and you as the chairman.
And also, Councillor Channer, I think it's if you feel it's a pecuniary interest, then obviously you must make your decision. But
Yes.
if you don't feel it is, well, stay in. I mean, I can't. That's just my feeling. Just because all I'm saying, just because
pecuniary interests are not little arguments. Pecuniary interests are not little arguments.
Okay, Councillor.
And I'm just saying, my understanding is non-pecuniary. I know the applicant, but in light of what, that's why I wanted, if the minute takers got the exact wording, which I hope is the case, I just wanted to hear what Councillor Fluke said again, because if this now comes into the equation, then I am going to leave the meeting for that application, because it's an association I have through my party.
Okay, Bernard, can you assist with the wording of what Councillor Fluke said, please?
No, apologies. I can't just at the moment because I was just in the middle of trying to set up the other chat line for members. I will be able to check with the recording, but if you just bear with me for a second, please.
Can I suggest that we proceed with the meeting and then stop at the point of the second item to clarify?
And then carry on from there. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Skeys. We'll move on now to agenda item 5, plan application 20-00113/FOL 171 to 173 Station Road, Burnham-On-Crouch, CMO 8JY, found on pages 11 to 30. Please note there's also a members update. This application has been called in by Councillor Bell and is at the moment recommended for refusal. Can I now ask the officer to present the the plans, please?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Planning permission is sought for the partial change of use of the ground and first floor from a shop to residential accommodation. The proposed development would involve the demolition of an outbuilding to the south of the main building, the erection of a single-storey rear extension, and the installation of a new fence and gates. Here we have the location plan and the block plan where you can see the rear extension, the existing ground floor plans, and the proposed ground floor plans where you can see these areas have been converted to residential, the existing first floor plan and the proposed first floor plan, and this area has been converted to residential. Then we've got the existing rear and internal side elevations and the proposed rear and internal side elevations. Got the existing front and side elevation as visible from the street scene and the proposed elevations. And then we've got the site photos. The proposed development is identical to a previously refused scheme. The additional information contained within the design and access statement is not considered to overcome the previous reason for refusal. The proposal would result in the partial loss of an existing retail unit, which is likely to result in the unit being unable to suitably function for its purpose. The proposal also results in the unjustified loss of employment land. Whilst the lawful use of the outbuildings to the rear of the main building has been questioned, 2 previous applications confirm that the buildings were redundant boat building and repair sheds, which were most recently used for repairing lawnmowers. This was accepted by the council and the applications were determined on this basis. There's been no evidence or information supplied which disproves this. Therefore, the proposal is recommended for refusal on the basis of the loss of employment land and partial loss of the retail unit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms Bowles. We have 2 submissions. Submission number 1 from Nick Hutton Penman, a supporter. I'm very supportive of this planning application that it is taking an historic building in Burnham-On-Crouch and restoring it to its former glory. At the same time, improving and maintaining a small business in the town's main high street. The building has agreed planning to convert the property into flats, which lapsed because of the building and its outbuildings could not be sold. The current owners, a long-standing Burnham family who have a history of shopkeeping in the town, purchased the property to use as their family home as well as run a small business. The current planning application includes plans to transform the building into an upgraded family home whilst maintaining many of the original building features, the removal of an unsightly tin shed that was a late addition and is in complete disrepair, to provide badly needed off-street parking and maintain the business element. It is difficult to understand how such an application could be considered in any way other than positively by the planning authority. It significantly improves the aspect of the town and the business that will be run from it and will attract people to the high street, therefore benefiting all small businesses. The planning application includes a request to reduce the size of the commercial footprint back to original footprint size, which serves two purposes. Firstly, it scales the business premises to a footprint commensurate with the requirements and budgetary costs of a business that will fill it and give it some chance of success rather than burdening it with unnecessary costs. Secondly, it returns the family property back to its original size, the previous owner having extended the business element. The shop and outbuildings do not and never have had any running water, fresh or foul. The rear brick shed is also in disrepair, but is to be kept and renovated. Therefore, the historical purpose of the building as an ironmonger's would remain for any tourist interested in the local history. Overall, this application can only benefit the town. It improves the historic building in the town, removes an unsightly shed and promotes small businesses in the town. I would urge you to support this planning application. Right, there's another submission. Submission 2 from Helen Dawson, the applicant. To address the main reasons for refusal, which are related to the rear sheds and their historical purpose, having researched and spoken to many people who through generations have never known the two sheds to be used for boat building or repairs, it was an ironmonger's research uncovered two-storey buildings that was on hard standing behind our brick building, once used for marine engineering, K.J. Whiting, then car repairs owned by Mr. Baker. It subsequently burnt down and was never part of any of our buildings or plot. We have photographic evidence of this two-storey building. We own a large box of ledgers found in the property dating back to 1912, and not one mentions of boat building repairs or river-related trades in any of these ledgers. There is much historical evidence of the local museum relating to the hardware store and ironmongeries, but again, no mention of boat building. Application 19-00560 stated that the workshops are beyond economic repair. No amount of sales marketing would be successful, therefore no loss to employment land as it cannot be used for business. There appears to be no solid proof in this application to the workshop's historic use. We brought this property to live and work in the town and have much local support. The shop is currently set up for trading and it works incredibly well in these very uncertain times. We are still striving and working hard to run our business and to provide service to the town as well as live, love and renovate a beautiful building, one of the last few remaining old Burnham-On-Crouch. Chairman may refer to other officers before finally moving to the recommendation. Any other officer want to make a comment? The recommendation as set out within the report is as follows. The planning application 220/0011-3 FUL for 171-173 Station Road, Burnham-On-Crouch, be refused for the reasons detailed in the report below. If any member wishes to second this motion, please turn on your video, unmute your microphone and state your name now. Thank you. I'll invite members to make comments on the report.
Yes, please, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Councillor Bell.
Bell, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, can I say I'm flabbergasted with the amount of evidence that the applicant has provided that this premises was never used for river-related trades. Flabbergasted that the officers are still refuting this. Secondly, I'd like to acknowledge, yes, this is a difficult site. It's a heritage asset, it's in the conservation area, it is one of the biggest retail spaces we have, but also it is in a flood zone. It has no allocated shop parking, and I'm amazed again that officers have absolutely given no reference, made no reference to the impact that COVID-19 is clearly having and will have for a significant amount of time on our high streets in terms of retail and retail space. So first of all, the reduction still leaves this as one of the biggest shops in Burnham. It makes it more sustainable. It returns it to the original footprint. The officer said several times that it had been converted to residential, the ground floor space. It was previously residential. It was previously, retail. So actually, the current position is not the original one. I think, under the circumstances, the conservation officer agrees. He supports this. Sorry, bear with me. And the Planning Listed Building and Conservation Areas Act of 1990 does require that council pay special attention to the desirability of preserving and enhancing the character and appearance of the conservation area. And I advise that this proposed application would indeed do that, preserve and enhance the character. So there's been no previous objection from EA. Yes, sorry, that was slightly garbled, but been waiting a long time to say that. But I really cannot see how there can be any objection to this application. It does everything we need it to do for Burnham, and I would propose that we support this application. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. Have we a seconder to that proposal?
I'll second that. Councillor Stamp will second that proposal.
Okay. Will the officers like to come back and mitigate against before we go to the vote?
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, Councillor Bell raised a number of points in her comment. 2 seconds, just trying to look something up. Right, okay. Obviously, Councillor Bell made reference to the level of evidence provided. My understanding, and as the officer highlighted, and I'm sure she can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've had 4 pictures of and a statement about ledgers, as to argue that the site has not been used for employment-based uses in relation to the maritime. Obviously, that person, I think that's quite a small amount of information that's been submitted as part of the application, especially when you think that previous submissions from the applicant have stated the opposite. So obviously, that is something we need to balance. And I don't think that, as I said, 4 photos and a statement about ledgers is really a lot for the council to base a decision on. Notwithstanding this, there was a comment about having no on-site car parking. Obviously, this is a high street location or retail area. In most instances, such as this, that is relatively common. But the car parking section is actually within the officer's report, and obviously deals with that, because obviously the expansion of the residential accommodation obviously has an offset, so that's a bit of a moot point personally. And as I said, I would be worried if officers or members considered loss of retail because they don't have allocated sites as a principle of supporting such proposals, because that would then drill into the heart of any application to lose a retail unit in pretty much every high street across the district. The the property is partially converted, as Councillor Bell said. It's not the original, but that shouldn't be a consideration of much weight because we are dealing with a planning application at this time as is. And as members know, each application must be determined on its own merits and on the basis of what is in front of us. Obviously, this is an old property. This has had a long history of life, even before the planning system. So things are going to change, but we have to determine an application today in 2020 with what the site is as it is. I note the comments about the conservation area and the conservation officer's comments, but neither of the reasons for refusal relate to that point. As members are aware, an application needs to be considered against all the various policy requirements that relate to the application. The impact on the conservation area is just one of those, and that is dealt with in the officer's report and explains that. But obviously, that isn't the reason for refusal on either the two reasons for refusal. And just in relation to COVID-19, I think as an authority and decision maker, we need to be very conscious of this. We don't know exactly how the impacts are going to be. And we shouldn't be making assumptions, and our policies don't allow for that. And on the other side, as we all know, we need to determine applications in relation to the life of the development. There is likely to be impact from COVID-19. I'm not saying there won't be, but once this is granted, it's likely we will lose the retail unit or the aspect of it permanently. And I don't think members really should be giving a lot of weight to the current situation created by COVID-19 termination of application when looking against what government guidance is and case law is on just determining planning applications. Thank you, Chairman.
We've got Councillor Bell and Councillor Skeens wishing to speak in, please. Councillor Bell, please. Councillor Bell, can you switch your microphone on your video on, please? Councillor Bell.
Sorry, I'm losing internet, Councillor Bell. I'm losing internet here.
Well, I can hear you. Carry on.
Fuck's sake.
I can hear you. What's your language?
We can hear you.
Shall I take Councillor Skeens first then? Councillor Skeens.
Yes, two things. I remember this site from my childhood. Now, obviously, as you can see from the photographs, there was maritime use of further down in the yard, which belongs to Priors. I do not recall from the age of 12 onwards, back in the 70s, the shop itself having anything to do with maritime. There was a possibility of buying hardware that you could use on the boat, but you always preferred to go to the Chandlers, which were more expensive, but had gear better suited to the maritime world. So I don't recall it back from the 70s that it was used. I'm assuming, of course, that the boatyard further down where the boats are parked in the pictures has nothing to do with this. The only question I really have is the gating. From what I can see in the application, it seems pretty clear that the gating is in between the two buildings, the brick building and the main building, with the corrugated iron building being knocked down in between. I just want to be sure that there's no other gating blocking access from the high street through to the quay, because there is a route round there that's been used for time out of mind, and I wouldn't want to see that blocked up. I was just wondering if an officer can confirm there's no proposals that they have seen, I haven't seen them, I must say, to block off that access through to the quay around the back of Prior's malting sheds.
Can an officer assist, please, regarding the gating?
Hannah, are you able to pick that up as case officer?
Yeah, through you, Chair. I don't believe the access is cut off. It's just sectioning off the part where the tin shed is going to be demolished. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Hannah. Councillor Bell, please.
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, I lost internet for a moment there. Just to come back, I wonder if Mr. Lee might like to look at the pay a visit to Burnham Museum, where he will find ledgers dating back and other information, photographs, etc., supporting the applicant's assertion that this is not related to river trades. I just want to repeat, I believe this is a once in a lifetime opportunity that we have, where somebody who loves Burnham, who loves this particular shop, wants to make a go of it in what is a very, very, very difficult, challenging retail climate. And I applaud that, and I really think this is the type of initiative that we should be supporting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. Councillor Stamp, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. It's obviously I've left it to the 2 ward members, but there is something I posted on for members to look at. Was there any mention of the previous history on this site for planning that was spent? Because I can't remember exactly if 12 flats or 6 flats was approved on this site, but the length of time expired, so that application planning approval fell flat. Now, if you consider that they were going to change the whole of it and lose the whole of it as a retail site to flats, and now we're querying a person who wants to keep part of it and extend it into a live accommodation to accommodate one family, I find absolutely astonishing. And I know Mr. Lee will come back with me in his normal, every application has to be viewed on its own merit, etc., Councillor Stamp. And I'm not being funny, Councillor Mr. Lee, because I know that you'll say that to me. But we have to look at this in relation to our high street. It is a small business. She does want to, or they do want to make a go of it. They're not changing anything massively. They're going to try and tidy up that site. It is a mess down there, members. And to be quite honest, I was really unsure the first time this came to Burnham Town Council. And I think actually I was going to refuse it. But the more I've looked into it, I actually do support this application. And I think we should be applauding, like Councillor Bell has said, in this economic climate. I take on board what Mr. Lee says. We can't overreact or whatever in COVID-19. But I like this. I think this is going to be nice for the town. I think it's going to attract, open another retail space, which is closed down. It is closed down, members. I don't know if you've all been to visit, members, but it is closed at the moment. It's a vacant shop. We've got other shops that are now being brought back to life. And I think the care and attention the applicant has made here will enhance our high street. And I really do urge members to, if you've got any questions, please ask, obviously the officers, but support us. This is what, well, I certainly would like, and so would Councillor Bell. Thank you, Chairman. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Lee, would you like to come back?
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, points raised by Councillor Bell are subjective. Obviously, just comment on what I'd said. No real point to say that, other than obviously it isn't the council's issue to go to museums and things. Yeah. Obviously, it should be submitted with the application to support the application, and that is the responsibility of the applicant, and that is how the planning system works. In relation to Councillor Stamp's point, I'm sure Councillor Stamp knows, and obviously all the other members do, that previous application and the weight to be attributed to that is assessed in paragraph 3.1.10 of the officer's report. And while I do note what the application was for, it has expired, and also that was considered prior to the adoption of the current LDP, and actually, if off the cuff, I think before we had a 5-year land supply. So obviously that is a very different set of planning landscapes that we found ourselves in at that time to what we do now. And just to prove Councillor Stamp right, each application must be determined on its own merit. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I move the recommendation for refusal, and that was not seconded. So we have a recommendation for Councillor Bell for approval, seconded by Councillor Stamp. Can I have some reasons, please?
Can we have recorded vote as well, please?
Yeah, you may have a recorded vote.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, principle of sustainable development under the NPPF, please, as a reason.
Any more?
I can't think of any more. I think it's just, it will actually, I know it's not a planning reason, but it will contribute and enhance to our retail site, Chairman.
Mr. Lee, is that sufficient?
Also, sorry, Mr. Chairman, also the heritage one, the English heritage one that I stated earlier. Okay. Bear with me a moment, I'll get my notes, carry on.
And
Mr.
also,
Lee,
thank you, Chairman. I'll be honest, I've got concerns in relation to the point that Councillor Bell just raised. Neither of the reasons for refusal go against or relate to the conservation area. Obviously, the office report does discuss the need to preserve or enhance the character of a conservation area. And arguing or putting forward the position that the council considers just because a development is acceptable in a conservation area on its appearance that it conflicts with other policies, and that should be, you know, thrown out with the bath. The baby should be thrown out with the bathwater. We should undermine those policies. Is a worry, I would say, members, because that isn't the reason for refusal. If it was up for refusal on impact on the conservation area and actually members thought it preserved it or enhanced it, that would be different. But the need to preserve and enhance the conservation area is very different to what the two reasons for refusal are. Obviously, if members think that there isn't a loss of employment from maritime because they consider that either enough evidence has been provided or in their opinion it isn't an issue, that's one thing. Same as the impact on the retail is one thing. But I would be very worried and concerned about using the fact that it just preserves and enhances the conservation area as a reason to ignore the two other policy reasons for refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
If I could just say something there. Yes, well, I think this is a question of history. It strikes the Burnham members clearly as an effort to preserve the history far more than the previous application. I realise this is on its own merits, but on its own merits is better than the last one. There is some effort to preserve the history, the historical feel of the place. And I think that is the sort of reason why councillors get to make decisions like this against the planning officer's recommendations, because they live there and they know the history. And I would say that, as I said before, my memory of it, that it was not that this particular exact site with the red line round it was not used for maritime employment, and it is offering the chance of more employment, at least in the shop. So I think those are reasons.
Mr. Lee?
Members' gift. It's in members' gift. Obviously, their reason for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, can I just say I agreed with what Mr. Lee said, and he was very helpful when he was highlighting the reasons for refusal. So can we not just go on the opposite? We don't feel it's an unjustified loss of employment because it's still providing employment. So that's the first thing. And it's still, when it says contributes to the tourist attraction, why would it not contribute to the tourist attraction? So I think really for the reasons of refusal for section 1, we just go for the opposite reasons, Chairman. Mr. Lee might be really kind and help me out on that.
I'd agree, Councillor Stamp. Agree with you there.
Yeah, as I said earlier, obviously, if members consider that, you know, evidence has been provided that shows that the loss of it's not maritime employment isn't an issue, and that in their opinion that the retail unit would still be a viable option, that would be, you know, a planning based reason for approval. I think that would be appropriate without actually looking at undermining any other position. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, could Mr. Lee, in a condition, if it is improved, make sure that the remaining retail space is kept as a remaining retail space, Chairman?
Two things, members, in relation to this application. It's quite a complex application, so rather than listing conditions, which I normally would do, I would recommend that this would be delegated to officers through consultation with the chairman in relation to any conditions. In relation to specifically the point of the retail area, we would normally condition something along those lines. The exact wording probably wouldn't be as draconian as maybe Councillor Stamp's thinking, because that would need planning permission. And the government guidance and case law is clear that a planning condition has to meet the 6 tests, and one of them is necessary. So we would require it to be remain as a retail unit, but that wouldn't stop the potential for a plan application in future or anything like that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Matt, are you confident with all the reasons they've given? You all got them down?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Obviously, we haven't had a vote yet, but I'm happy with the principle.
Just make sure you've got it all there first. Right, we now move to a recorded vote. Can we now take a vote, please? Bernard, are you here still? Hello, Bernard.
She's muted.
You're muted, Bernard. You're muted.
Bernard, you're muted.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to unmute myself.
Bernard, can you now take a vote? This is
I can, yes. It keeps. Sorry, it kept remuting me. And
this is their
maybe that's
approval. And,
okay. So we're
Matt
yes.
has all the details.
Approval contrary to the officer's recommendation. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So, Councillor Bassinger. Councillor Bassinger.
Hello, Bernard. I would like to approve the application, please.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
For.
Councillor Boyce, if still present. Councillor Boyce. Okay. Councillor Channer.
Abstain.
Councillor Fluker. Sorry, who's left? Councillor Helm.
Abstain.
Councillor Hall. Councillor Hall. Councillor Hall, are you still there? Okay. Councillor Skeens.
For approval.
Councillor Stamp.
For Bernard, please.
Okay, so that's
all.
For approval.
You haven't got my vote yet.
Sorry, who's this? Councillor Hall?
Can you hear me? Yes. I approve. For.
Councillor Hall approves.
Okay, so that's 5 for approval, none against, 2 abstentions.
Okay, that is duly approved.
Chairman, can I just ask that? I've got 4 for approval. Can we just have the people who have approved it so we don't make a mistake? I had Councillor
Bassinger, Councillor Bell, Councillor Hull, Councillor Skeens, Councillor Stamp.
Thank you, Bernard.
5 for approval. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much for that, members. We move on to item 6. Let me get all the paperwork here and we'll be well away. We'll get there in a minute.
Well, Chairman, just coming in on this one, and
yes,
and Councillor Fluker's declaration, peculiar it appears from what Bernard's written. I'm sorry, perhaps I'm being thick. I don't quite recognise what the association is with the Secretary of State and the DCLG development.
Well, I'm afraid I can't assist you with that. It's up to you to decide whether you've got a pecuniary interest or not.
I understand that, Chairman, but I'm asking as a Conservative because is it linked to that? It seems to be the Secretary of State was found of bias to do with something to help a developer save money, and I'm not sure I understand what implication that has got with this application. I know the applicant only purely because I'm a Conservative and they're in the same Conservative Party as me, but I have certainly had no dealings or anything to do with any talk with the applicant about this application or anything. So I'm just befuddled why pecuniary. It seemed to infer to me that should all Conservatives, but that would be a nonsense because then you'd be talking the same for Liberal and Liberal Democrats everywhere.
I suggest you do a non-pecuniary interest then, Councillor.
I did that, Chairman. I declared that initially.
Right, okay, then we'll carry on.
I better do the same as well then, Councillor Hull. I think I better do the same.
Well, we haven't decided what you're going to do yet, so Councillor Channer's not quite sure whether she should have a pecuniary interest or not.
No, Chairman, I was quite clear at the start of the meeting. I declared non-pecuniary.
That's right.
It was in light of Councillor Fluker then bringing forward and going on about the Secretary of State and the DCLG development. sorry, I have the screen off. It was in light of Councillor Fluker drawing some similarities with the Secretary of State and the DCL development at West Ferry Works, and the significance he declared in interest. Now, the significance there was that's got to be redetermined. I only looked at it on Google because I got an inkling of it before. The Secretary of State was found to be influencing it because to save the developer money. And I certainly haven't been involved in anything like that with this applicant, so I think mine's still non-pecuniary.
Okay.
But I may not vote, and I'm going to take it up with Simon Crouch because I really don't know what the DCLG West Ferry work development's got to do with it.
Right, okay. Councillor Hull, do you want to proceed or not?
Can you hear me?
Hello, yes?
Yes, I just think it's a non-pecuniary interest.
Okay, that's fine. Lovely. Thank you very much. We move on now to application number 20-00271/House, 7 Riverside Road, Burnham-On-Crouch, CMO 8JY. Garage conversion with bow window and detached single cart lodge. It's a members call in by Councillor Wendy Stamp, and the recommendation is for refusal. Right. Would officers like to make a presentation, please?
Thank you, Chair.
And if you want to speak, can you use the chat function, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So planning permission is sought for a garage conversion with the insertion of a bow window and the erection of a detached single cart lodge. Here we've got the location plan and the block plan, where you can see the proposed cart lodge to the front here and the garage to be converted here. We've got the existing ground floor plans and the proposed ground floor plans, the existing elevation plan, and the proposed elevation plans, and the proposed cart lodge elevations. We've got some site photos. The proposed cart lodge is located in a prominent position to the front of the dwelling and is not a development commonly found within the existing street scene. It is considered to form a dominant and incongruous addition, harming the visual amenity of the site and surrounding conservation area. In addition, the proposal would lead to a shortfall of off-street car parking spaces. Therefore, the proposal is recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I have 2 submissions here. One from Councillor Ron Pat on behalf of the Town Council. This application is similar in many others in Burnham, where the garage is converted into living or office accommodation. The added bonus in this application is that there is adequate space in the front garden for 2 cars. The existing garage, I believe, is too narrow for modern cars. The cart lodge will give protection from the sap droppings from the preserved tree. The cart lodge uses garden space and adds to the off-street parking. The Burnham Town Council sees no reason not to approve the necessary improvements to Mrs. Owen's residence. She needs a separate shower. This gives her that. Submission 2. The main bedroom of 7 Riverside Road needs a shower facility next to the present lavatory and wash basin. The utility area is a makeshift affair which needs to be updated, refurbished and completed to an acceptable standard. The garage space is filled with household paraphernalia, since it is difficult to get out of the car once it is parked inside. It would make a pretty bedroom and enhance the value of the bungalow when I die, for the benefit of my 3 children who live modestly, and I have families to support. Another bedroom would be better use of the space and provide a comfortable, well-furnished home for a family. There are a variety of windows which create interest in the road. An oriel window was discussed but rejected because it might jut out too much. A choice was made for a bow window to harmonise with that of the number 10A, the bungalow named Heritage, almost opposite mine. My car needs some sort of protection. Pigeons and collared doves a blackbird and a robin all roost in the simple maple tree and deposit their droppings, as do the seagulls, starlings, a heron when flying overhead. There is a constant fall of sap from the leaves, which leaves a sticky substance on the car from spring to autumn. The car is very hot in the summer and frosty in the winter, and my energy levels are decreasing, so it's difficult to keep the car clean and presentable every time I go out. I'm 86. The maple tree was planted by me several years ago. I am its friend. It was my neighbour who disliked the tree and wanted it felled. I put in an application order to please her, which resulted in the preservation order. The wet posts of the carport would be continuous of the building line of the recent built terrace of the townhouses called Tideways. The east post would be outside the area given to the tree to protect it. I respectfully request that members of the council put forward a motion to approve my planning application. Officers, would you like to come in now?
Not at the moment, Chairman. Obviously, that's the applicant's position. Obviously, what I would say is just conscious that a lot of the issues that raise would not, in my professional opinion, be classed as very special circumstances. It'd be circumstances that most individuals would feel, and obviously should be given appropriate weight in the determination. Thank you.
Right. The recommendation is to be refused. If any member wishes to second that motion, please turn on your video, unmute your microphone and state your name now. Nobody want to second that? Thank you. I now invite members to make any comments on the report. Who has indicated? Anyone indicated?
Chairman, I'll speak after the two ward members if you like. I know I called it in, but it's only protocol if the two ward members would like to speak.
Nobody's indicated they want to speak yet.
Does a member wish? Bell's trying.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I'm just unmuting myself, Mr. Chairman. There, I mean this isn't a conservation area. This is this is a bungalow in an ordinary street. There's no particular issue with visuals as far as I can see. This seems to be, Mr. Chairman, we often find ourselves approving annexes and other kind of ways that people can remain in their accommodation. And to me, this appears to be nothing more than that. You know, the applicant wants a shower room that she can use. I really can't see anything wrong with this application, Mr. Chairman, so I would actually move that we support it, if there's a seconder for that.
I'll second that, Chairman. Councillor Stamp.
Who else wants to speak, please?
I'll speak, Chairman, if Councillor Skeens. I don't know if Councillor Skeens is still here.
I'm still here, but I have nothing to add to what's already been said by Councillor Bell.
Okay.
Councillor Stamp, please.
Okay. Oh, gosh. Sorry, I forgot to put my video on. It's better for you. We don't have it anyway, Chairman.
It's a much better picture than the icon, anyway.
Excuse me. Sorry, Chairman. Sorry, Chairman. I'm a little bit astounded, you know, we're refusing something as small as this to somebody who, you know, it's going to make her living conditions easier and it's within our development boundaries, but yet we can approve something on previous applications that's a monster outside the development boundary. I know, Mr. Lee, I won't say it, members are going to tell me off here, each application on its own right, but you have to take things as a whole in a town and you have to represent your constituents accordingly. I personally have driven past this place, I've looked at it, I take on board all the comments, and I think the actual email from the owner, okay, there isn't planning reasons in there, but that just shows you how her life is being impacted and how much she cares for where she lives. So I don't believe that her application is going to change and cause any detrimental harm to where she actually lives. Councillor Pratt says exactly the same. I totally agree with what Councillor Pratt said. So I would actually like to say I don't agree with the officer's recommendation. A cart lodge is classed as a non-permanent structure for the reasons that it is non-permanent. And I agree she needs to put her car away. If you look at the planning history, Chairman, you can see how conscientious this applicant has been and always gone for proper planning permissions. Trees, everything, you know, and I know it's not an issue, Mr. Lee, here, but it just shows how conscientious and how they want to do everything correct. Now, I think she should be commended on that. I do not agree with the officer's recommendation. I don't think it is detrimental to the character. I don't think it is contrary to policies D1, D3 and H4. And I agree with Councillor Bell. And I don't think it is a problem with T2, and I agree with Councillor Bell that we should approve this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Matt Lee, would you like to come back and?
Obviously, you know, as members know, each application has its own merit, and but I think there's a couple of points I'd like to raise. There is a big difference, obviously, between a householder extension and, you know, a strategic site or an allocated site or an industrial site. And each application has its own material considerations. It has its own policy process to go through. And I don't think, as an authority, we should be looking at a thought process, which is what was implied, in my opinion, that anything that is seen as basically a householder extension, I think, should be approved on the assumption that it is not as harmful as another scheme. We need to look at each application on its own merit, and I think that is important. And I'm not saying members aren't doing that, but I just obviously need to reiterate that from what could be inferred by members of the public. In planning terms, our cart lodge, is a permanent structure. It requires planning permission and would be there for a foreseeable time. But I would warn members against giving too much weight, as I said, to the need for the personal circumstances, because they are pretty much general personal circumstances. And case law is clear that it needs to be very special circumstances. And just because someone is getting old or there's a personal issue or something, that should not be per se a reason to support an application. And the weight should reflect whether it's very special circumstances. And I'd also advise members to the fact that applications have previously been submitted not to weigh in favour of the application either, because that would then mean that if someone hasn't submitted a previous application, we'd be inferring that we would not be supporting them on that point. So I think for those two issues, as I said, there's two reasons for refusal for this application. Oh, sorry, not two, isn't it? Sorry, just
lost sound.
Yeah. Sorry, but I hope I'm back. I said there's two reasons for refusal. One relates to the carport scale and positioning and design, which, as I said, is a subjective matter which hasn't really been talked about, rather than saying that there's a need for the carport. And as I said, I'd worry about giving that too much weight in its overall process, because I said that's not particularly special circumstances. And if we replicated that across the district, you know, that would be a problem. And the other issue is obviously about the decreasing bedrooms resulting in a detrimental impact on the area due to highway safety, due to not meeting the car parking requirements. And neither of those points have really been talked at. So at the moment, I'm not clear on, if members were to look to recommend approval, what the reasons for approval would be, based on the fact that no, they haven't talked at this current reasons for refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We have, I put the refusal forward and no one seconded that. We have a proposal for going against the officer's recommendation, proposed by Councillor Bell and seconded by Councillor Stamp. I now need valid reasons, planning reasons for approval, please.
Well, I think I said them. I don't agree with the officer's report. I don't think it is detrimental to policy D1, D3 and H4. And Councillor and Mr. Lee said, obviously, some of it is subjective. Yes, it is subjective. And because of that reason, yeah, we don't, or I certainly don't, think it will cause any harm in the location it is. And I thank Mr. Lee for correcting me, as he always does, and we always seem to do this with each other. I wasn't implying anything of the sort about decisions not being, you know, outside and inside, and we should approve them inside the boundary or whatever. But no, I don't agree with him. So and hopefully my other members, the ward members, will be able to support me on this. I don't agree that it is against the policies that they've said. I think we can support it. It isn't detrimental to the conservation area. It's not a huge, great big thing. And I apologise. I didn't think cart lodges were permanent planning structures, only unless they put doors in them, because that's what I was told. But I apologise to Mr. Lee. He is the person in the know here, not me. And I don't think it does create any harm. So that's the only thing I can do. And I would ask Mr. Lee if he can come back and actually say if that's right or wrong.
Matt, can you come back, please? And
always happy to help members. As I said in when I speak, I wasn't saying that Councillor Stamp or any other member was saying that, but what I just obviously need to do is to make sure there could be no influence by anybody that from the public that may try to imply that. So, as members always know, I do try to smooth over any wrinkles that could be seen. As I said, yeah, a cart lodge is still development, is still a permanent structure. It's not on wheels or anything, so it is what it is to a certain extent. So yeah, in planning terms, it is a structure. Obviously, Councillor Stamp's talking to the first reason for refusal, and as I said earlier, it is subjective. You know, it's the opinion on whether or not there is harm on the character of the area. All I'll say is that there is still no comment on the second reason for refusal in any of the debate, and obviously why a scheme should be allowed either needs to be overall that benefits would outweigh harm, which talks across reasons for refusal, or it should deal with each reason for refusal, because otherwise, you know, just for example, there was 5 reasons for refusal officers recommended. It wouldn't necessarily mean that members agreed with all of them, but a scheme, this is totally this principle, but a scheme could still be refused on 3 reasons, for example, etc. So at the moment, while I understand Councillor Stamp's always putting forward her position on the character of the area, they're just saying there is still nothing in relation to highway safety. Thank you, Chairman.
If I could come back on that, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, reading the officer reports about, you know, well, it's not viable as a parking solution because cars would have to reverse out, reverse back in. I'd say that's pretty subjective, because I'd say, yes, that might be an inconvenience for the residents, but that doesn't make it unviable. And I disagree that the impact on highway safety is an issue. So that's my position on that. Thank you.
Yes,
Mr. Lee, I'd like to say
something. Could I add to that?
Yes, Councillor Skeys.
Just to say that I agree. I think the effective carport that is being built for this cart lodge doesn't really present any obvious traffic difficulties that I can judge that aren't common all around the town. Obviously, you assume that the person is a safe driver and will reverse in and drive out and look both ways. I don't see that parking there is really much different to when it was a garage, in truth.
Okay, thank you very much. Matt, have we got enough reasons now to proceed?
Chairman, can I ask one more question? I put it in the bar, in the thing.
Sorry, I didn't see it. Sorry.
I apologise if I've missed it, because I, you know, same as everybody else. Where is the highways report from the highways?
Can I refer to Matt? Where's the highways report?
It's not on my papers, Chairman.
There isn't one.
Hello, Matt?
Sorry, Chairman. I was looking at the presentation and then I couldn't get back to you. Yeah, highways haven't been consulted on items matters such as this. Highways, we as members know we've got our own adopted guidance in relation to car parking. So highways, as in Essex, don't comment on matters such as level of car parking, etc. For Malden, they only comment on impacts on the free flow of highway traffic. So matters such as this, they wouldn't consult on. This even goes, which is a personal frustration myself, if, for example, there was a public house with a massive car park and they wanted to build 20 houses on that car park, highways would still say no objection, even though, you know, all the cars would now be on the road. So personally, as a professional, I have a frustration with that, but we are where we are in that respect. And obviously, it there comes down to professional judgment of officers. In relation to the car park, obviously, it's two-fronted. One is obviously the difficulties of actually using the space, but also it is that there's an additional bedroom, so the car parking requirements have gone up to 3. If members don't consider this is an issue, whether that's because they consider it to be a more sustainable location or because they just think that it isn't a particular inconvenience, that's within their judgment, but that's up for them to make that decision. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, members, let's proceed. No one voted for the refusal. We now have a vote for approval by Councillor Stamp. No, Councillor. Remind me.
Councillor Bell.
Bell and Councillor Stamp seconded that.
Chairman, do you want me to suggest conditions?
Yes, please.
I would suggest it was the standard 3 of time, plans and materials, an additional one in relation to the tree protection as recommended by the conservation, our tree consultee, and
I'd agree that definitely.
And conditions in relation to car parking and incidental use of the cart lodge, which would just be sort of the standard conditions we put on developments such as this.
Excellent.
Thank you, Chairman.
Right, thank you very much. Can we now go to the vote, please, Bernard?
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So we're voting to approve contrary to the officer's recommendation. Please state clearly for, against or abstain when I call your name. Councillor Bassinger?
For, thank you.
Councillor Bell?
For.
Councillor Channer?
Well, Chairman, I did state earlier that I would not be voting.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Helm?
Abstain.
Councillor Hull?
For.
Councillor Skeens?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Stamp?
For, Bernard, please.
Thank you. So that's 5 for the application, none against, and 2 abstentions.
Right, that's duly approved. Any other items of business that the chairman of the committee decides are urgent? There are none. And I will now close the meeting at whatever time it is, 14:54.